Hey guys, our old friend Anna Maria Manalo joins us to talk about our upcoming book release and what she's been up to. See you in about 5 minutes. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. How you doing? I know it's evening for some people and nighttime for some people, and still afternoon for me. It's only 5, but West Coast, right? Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team. Let me get my mic adjusted here a little bit. Okay. Uh, we are based out of Sacramento, California, 45 strong, up and down the state, which means if you have a paranormal issue or you think you might have a paranormal issue, we can get out there and help you. Might take us a while. California is a huge state, but we do have people stationed, all over the place. And if we can't get you right away, I will be sure to put you in touch with one of our mediums who can call you and maybe settle things down or help you out with whatever's going on. Okay, that mouthful's done. Where can you find us? Well, right here on Facebook. Go ahead and send me a private email, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. We're on several pages on Facebook. And that being said, if you're watching from Facebook and you like what you see and hear, and you haven't done so yet, please hit that follow button. Always looking for followers, and show us some love. Okay, the more love you show us, the higher in the rankings we get, and just the way the algorithms run. All right. Same thing for YouTube. If you're watching us from YouTube tonight, slap that ghost on the head there. That ghost with the magnifying glass the Sherlock Holmes had, and that'll subscribe you to our videos if you haven't done so already. We have more than 550 videos over on YouTube, and they're all of this show. Different topics. I'm a journalist. I don't like to cover the same topic all the time. So you're going to get a big variety of topics. So I'm sure if you go down through the videos, you'll find something you like. And I see you guys doing that. I'm seeing comments in couple recent weeks going back for months. I love it. I love it. I love it. Anyway, welcome, welcome, welcome. Tonight we have a special guest. She's about her 4th or 5th time on here, I think. And we always have a lot of fun with her. One night we went for like 3 hours just chit-chatting. But we have a lot of fun with her. She's got a new book coming out in April. And right now, every Sunday or every night where a guest has something come up, we read from a paranormal themed book. And right now we are really reading from Anna's book, Unholy Structure. And I can tell you from my point of view, being a paranormal investigator for the past 25 years, this book is spooky. It is spooky. And I'll discuss some of that with her, and some of the things I see in there that stand out to me. We're only starting chapter 18 on Sunday, but there's already things that are standing out to me in this book that have the wow factor with this case that these guys are on. And it's based on a true story. It's based on a true ghost paranormal investigation that took place. And so, yeah, it's got the wow factor, that's for sure. Okay, now that I've said all that, you can find us at Facebook. You can find us on Twitter at Cal Haunts. You can find us at California Haunts on TikTok. You can find me on Instagram at Ghosty Gal, and it's all lowercase. Follow. YouTube, youtube.com/California Haunts Radio. See, it's that easy. So we're everywhere. And Facebook. We got like 4 or 5 pages on Facebook as well. And meetup.com. So we're over there too. So anytime you type us in, we're going to come up everywhere. All right. Well, without further ado, my good friend Anna Maria Manalo joins us. Let's do this.
Hey!
I'm out of breath now. You can start.
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to dim the lighting to put some mood lighting in here, but I think it got too dark.
There you go. It's okay. No, you
It's
look
okay.
good.
Yeah.
You look good.
All right, cool. I don't know for how long, but yeah, you told me about that spooky stuff that happened to you before we got on the air.
Yes. Well, it wasn't really spooky. It just scared the hell out of me. But that's okay. I mean, that's what your books are. That's what the book's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Put you on edge. And like I said, coming from the perspective of a paranormal investigator, there's a lot of red flags already popping up in the first 17 chapters of this book.
No.
What these guys are going through already. And it's like, hey. So yeah. Well, it's like, okay, guys, here's what happened, and I'll be good about. I did a pre-read on the book, so I could get a feel for the rhythm and everything in the book, And this is and me, I'm working till 2, 3 in the morning, so I shouldn't be reading crap like that. I'm not saying crap, you know what I mean? I shouldn't be reading ghost stories at 2 and 3 in the morning. It's a no-no. I don't even do EVP at 2 or 3 in the morning because it's a no-no. But there I am sitting here, reading. And I always have a couple of bottles of water in here with me. And so I had some empty bottles in here. And I'm reading away and I'm really getting into it. And all of a sudden, one of the bottles of water expanded. And I jumped about a foot off my chair. So that ought to tell you how spooky the book is for someone that's seen this stuff before. So there's some spooky stuff. The other thing I noticed is I also have a cord that hangs back here. And this what powers this thing up. And it was moving around by itself the last couple nights while I was sitting here looking at the book and stuff. So I don't know, man. Mm-hmm. But it's a great book, Unholy Structure, guys.
Thank you. I have to tell you, Shard, that when I was listening to John, the investigator,
yes,
who inspired me to write this particular case, a lot of strange things happened because, well, you already know that really well. When people talk about stuff like this, mm-hmm. Some otherworldly beings come around to where you are and, they kind of, I think they figure you're interested, we're interested, and now we're here and we're going to listen to you. And, like with your water bottle thing. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the strange thing is I had lights blinking off and on while he was sharing with me. And I'm just sitting in the living room. I have a couple of lamps there. And it's like going into the evening and my husband's at the other end of the house, watching TV. And meanwhile, John's like excitedly telling me everything. And I'm trying to write everything down. I got my notebook and everything. And suddenly the lights just go off.
Oh, yeah. I would do it. I'd be like, I'm done.
And I'm like, what is?
I'd be like, let's go to a restaurant, John. I'm done. Let's go.
Yeah. And the poor guy is like at least 2.5 hours north of me. And, when he started talking about this, I said, I'll have to call you and give you a series of phone calls to get the whole entire story down. So we started making appointments and he was working, as you could tell from the book, he works a lot. So he was working all the way into, I don't even know, 7 or 8 at night or whatever. He's got a long drive from the work site. By the time he gets home, he calls me. It's already late. Mm-hmm. So it gets even really scarier trying to write down all that. And you could tell from his voice, how good a book it was going to be. Mm-hmm. And all the events there, I got to tell you, it was very, very difficult writing them down in the sense that because you got to be in the zone. Mm-hmm. And, I'm trying not to write by myself, but it happens that way because I need the quiet to do it. I need the concentration. And this is one book where I was lost in it, writing it. And then strange things would happen. The dogs would suddenly bark. They would be looking out the window at something. And, and I'm thinking, oh, please, I don't want someone to start knocking on the door in the dead of night. Well,
I know the feeling, though, because I have one investigation that we do as a repeat because it's kind of a fun place to go. But on the other hand, there's a lot of activity. Mm-hmm. And the first time I was ever over there, we were filming for a TV show. Our TV show that we had. Ooh. And I would get all the tapes home and something would always happen. We'd lose the audio. The tapes didn't feed, the tapes didn't go, feed right into the laptop, nothing, stuff like that. So it had to be whatever was there following me home, or I had a stack of tapes sitting up, videotapes sitting up on my desk, and I got up to go use the restroom, and I saw them go flying across the room. The tapes got shot across the room, like someone, knocked the whole stack over.
Yeah.
So I've been there. I understand completely. And then I'm seeing, as I'm reading this thing, like I said, we're up to chapter 18 because I read last night as well. I'm seeing red flags already. And I mean, I can't imagine what he was really thinking at the time, when this stuff was happening and the reports were coming in from these people. And, and I don't want to give the whole plot away. You guys got to either get her book or listen to me. read it. Okay. But yeah, some of the things that were happening, I've had that happen before, where I've had entities mock voices of my team members, so it sounds like my team members, but it's not.
Wait until you get to the basement.
Okay.
That's all I'm gonna say.
That'll be a morning read, by the way. Yeah.
And here's the stuff that really, this is the frustrating part about this whole thing, because it changed hands about 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
And they had all kinds of, construction teams coming in trying to renovate, and then they walk out, and then they don't show up. Then they complain about, they did everything they could to stall it because they don't really want to be there.
Right.
By the time John told me the story, the owners had changed. And so they technically weren't allowed to go back in anymore. And they weren't allowed to disclose where this place. And you know what? In retrospect, I would have liked to have seen that place become a museum instead of an inn. And my understanding is that the owners kind of poo-pooed what, John's team recommended that they do to the place. And so they're still trying to fix it up with a new owner there because they want to make money. I mean, it's supposed to be an inn.
Right.
So they're trying to still fix up the place, but really it's not meant to be inhabited.
Right.
It really isn't. Yeah, go ahead.
Things like that always make me wonder, because I know there's a place up in Coloma up here that is very, very active. Lots of stories. In fact, they have a cemetery across the way, which is similar to this story. But the new owners don't even give it. I guess I don't know if they don't give it a second thought, or they're so used to what goes on that that's just second nature now, or what. But I mean, there's a lot that goes on in this place, and a lot of history in this place, and it's not quite as like that one, but I mean, it's enough to where it's been written up in a lot of books here, in California.
Wow. Is that near Sacramento? Sure.
Yes.
Where? Yeah.
It's up in the gold country, which is where they found gold.
Oh.
And I had experiences not inside the building, but outside the building, like on the road near the cemetery. And I can tell you, there's. I was driving up there, back in the old days when they had Sony Mavica cameras. Everybody on TV had a Sony Mavica. Of course, I wanted one because at that point I was still curious about ghosting. I hadn't started doing it yet, and so I got one, and I took my friend and I went up to decided let's go up to Coloma by that house, by that place and see. So I go driving up to Coloma, and I'm going to take photos at that cemetery, right? So I get up there and I get near the house, and I hear a voice in my head going, "Go home."
Oh.
And then I had this fear just grip me. I couldn't explain it. White knuckled the steering wheel, drove all the way up to the monument up there, to the WWII up there, came down, and as we're driving back, my friend says, "Look, there's a fog over at the cemetery. It's crossing the street."
Oh my gosh.
And I said, "I'm not looking. I don't care." Off we went home. And the stories are that one of the ghosts from the house is buried. Well, they're all buried over there, but this particular ghost that's buried over there will cross back and forth.
Oh.
So that was my experience outside. I never got in the house, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That would have been one horror movie right there, getting in the house and not being able to get out.
Oh yeah. So it makes you wonder, the people that live there now, and they've lived there for years, it just makes you wonder if they've just come to terms with what goes on in there, or if it's a thing by family or person by person. Like maybe there's owners don't experience it. It happens with different personalities. Maybe somebody's psychic and that owns it or something, and that's what draws them. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's like this next book that's about to be released. I mean, to me, you can interpret it one of two ways. And just to digress, it was one of those things where if you were a ufologist, you interpreted what was happening one way. But then if you were a paranormal investigator, you would say, "Oh no, definitely this is an infestation. It's a haunted person. That's what we're dealing with."
Right.
So there's like those two, and this is what drives me crazy, these two camps, because I was involved in both. And there's always like this camp saying, no, they're here, the aliens are here, and you could tell that they're doing it. And then you have the other camp saying, no, it's all manifestations of some kind of entity that's a lower level entity. Yet, but you really can't, to me, I can't really tell.
Right.
But that's, because I'm not really technically an investigator. I'm just taking the narrative as it comes to me. And I think about like my personal experiences.
Right.
And I think to myself, okay, you could actually say they're coming from the same portal, probably.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I know after reading the story of the couple that got abducted in the Mojave Desert, what happened afterwards, I started to wonder if ghost hunters are actually chasing after ghosts. That book made me wonder, because some of the accounts that those people had when the after effects when they would come back to get them, some of the accounts sound just like ghosts. They can come through the walls, the room gets colder, all this levitation, all this happens, and the voices sound like they're from dimensions away. So who's to say, and who's to say that we're not chasing ghosts, we're chasing aliens?
Yeah.
Because there's also reports with aliens that they will camouflage themselves, to look like your deceased relatives, to make you relax more when they take you aboard.
Yeah. And that was the freakiest part about Unholy, is when he was telling me that, it was like, okay, I could have sworn it was my wife talking to me. And then they come out and she's still in the van with the door closed.
Yep.
He comes out and then they're like, oh, you weren't talking to us in there? She's like, no, I haven't gotten in the house yet.
Yeah.
Mimic.
Yep. Well, they mimic. That's spooky. That's spooky stuff. And that's when you're getting in real deep too, when you got something that'll mimic like that. That's one of the first signs you're thinking, this isn't good. No, this is not grandma. This is not grandpa. This is something else altogether.
Yeah.
I love it, but he's so meticulous in how he thinks, which is nice. But on the other hand, after doing this for 25 years, right away, I'm like, whoa, okay, dude, put the brakes on, But that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. The book is well written. It's a great book.
Thank you.
All your books are well written.
It was a very absorbing way to spend the afternoon. It was like I think this is one of those books where I actually spent almost every day for about 2 hours writing, because, once I started one particular chapter, I had to keep it in my head. I don't work from an outline. I basically work from my notes directly, and I date them so I know how they flow.
Sure.
And in this one, it was like once I started, I don't know if you guys got to dog scene yet.
I don't know. I have to think about
No,
that.
probably not yet. But there's a sequence of scenes that really just got me like, oh my gosh, I gotta write this through. And I think for that one, I must have been sitting 4 or 5 hours straight to just get it out of my head and out of the page and into the laptop, and to get it flowing, because it was just, and I couldn't believe when he told me this, it was like an afterthought.
Yeah.
He calls me one night and he goes, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you what happened to such and such when he went back in the evening and so on and found this object on the ground. I was like, okay. And I'm thinking, okay, so it's like some kind of human bone or whatever it was.
Wow.
And the guy takes it back with him in his van. Big mistake.
What is it with people and stuff like that?
Yeah. Like, don't take it. Don't touch it. Don't move it.
And then the wife at the hospital with the apparition. And I can honestly, I can say this, because I have abilities. And when I first got involved with the paranormal, full time with the paranormal with groups, I was at the point where when I was working, I was seeing the people we were going to investigate before the investigation. It might be 2-3 days, but they show up at my workplace.
Oh,
I'd go into the bathroom, look over my shoulder, and there'd be an old lady standing there, with one of those. Well, you know how all our grandmas dressed, right? Back in those days when they had those apron things, those smock
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look over my shoulder. There's this gray-haired lady standing behind me, and she's got one of those one of those smock things with little blue dots on it. And then I turn back around and she's gone. So almost every investigation I was going on, I was seeing stuff before the investigation. So that's what I thought of when with the wife's story from the hospital, and I just thought, whoa, all these bells are going off. This is your fault.
I gotta hand it to you. You have a lot of guts. If I saw an apparition before an invest, I don't think I'd want to be going. That would be enough for me.
I'm just glad it was an old lady. Anything else, I would have been like, oh no,
Yeah.
a sweet old lady in a smock. I'm good. So have you seen, talking about your next book that you have coming up, have you ever seen a UFO?
Actually, yes. I talked about that in my very first book.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually close to here. I was on my way to work. And I remember this. It's 5:55 a.m. because I worked in a school.
Right.
I was a school counselor. So I would get up really early, like sometimes 4:45, and be out on the road at 5:55 because it took me an hour to get to work. And I'm going down the hill out of the development, and it's all trees all around me on this very slim road. And at that time of morning, it's still pretty dark. So the only thing I had were the lights from my vehicle. And as I was going down in the distance, I see the Wawa about 3 streets away on a corner. And right above it, this is very hard to believe. It looked like, a man's comb that he would buy for like $1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They're usually like maybe black.
Sure.
Picture that bent with several different like green, pink, yellow, and blue shimmering colors. Just, I would say less than 500 feet above the local Wawa.
Wow.
And I can't even describe the movement. It was like, someone took the comb and bent it, and it's like all these different colors. And it was so bright, I thought, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And instantly I stepped on the brake to slow down. And I got to the intersection, and there was a car in front of me. And the guy was like straining he was straining to look. And then he speeded like really fast away. And then it's one of those things too. At the time, I already had a cell phone. It was right next to me on the seat. And because I was with MUFON, I had one of these directional compasses.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked down, and the cell phone it was on bright red. You know how like on the top of your cell phone, after you charge it, it'll say 100%?
Right.
It was like saying 18% or something. Suddenly it was like all the battery was gone. So I started turning the wheel. I had my eyes glued to it, but at the same time, I was trying to see if there was any other cars. Of course, there weren't, right? Mm-hmm. And I started going down the road. And as I'm going down the road, I can feel something flickering behind me, and realized that whatever it was suddenly got smaller. Mm-hmm. But it was still very bright. Now it was like white hot in color. It was like a huge star, and it was shadowing me as I was going down this winding road.
Oh, that's spooky.
So the town technically was only 3 miles away. And by the time I parked in front of the Bagel Barrel, I was looking around, and I shot out of the car. I mean, I leaped out of the car. I didn't want to be alone on the curb looking at this thing. And something else was showing itself to be stationary, but I don't think it was the same one. It was very bizarre.
When you talk about the one that you just described, that's similar to something I saw when I was a kid. And I saw it out my front door. And I thought it was the Goodyear because my dad was into taking me to, when the Goodyear blimp was in town, it would fly, around. But
Uh-huh.
this thing just hovered in the sky, and I remember it was like kind of like a harvest moon color, but the outside had colored lights. And it just stayed for me. It seemed like it stayed forever, but I was like, I couldn't have been more than like 9 or 10, But I remember this thing distinctly, and I remember going, Dad, look, it's the Goodyear blimp. And he goes, Well, that's not the blimp. I don't know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
But then it disappeared.
And there's something weird about the quality of the color.
Yeah. Yes.
It's almost like it's going in and out.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to describe. When you haven't seen one, it's hard to describe to someone who hasn't seen one.
Right.
But once you see it, you know that's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
That it doesn't belong there, or you're not supposed to be seeing that. Is the feeling I had.
Right.
Yeah.
And like as a kid, that's all I'd ever seen at night like that. And the sky was a Goodyear blimp. So of course that's why I automatically associated it with. But it wasn't. There's no way.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Do you think you've been abducted?
Who, me personally? I don't think I've ever had missing time.
Okay.
I would say I don't feel anything around my arms or my cheeks or behind my ear that's been impaled into me or whatever they do to get that in there without you being able to remove it. But the woman in this book, it's hard to believe, Charlotte. I've never talked to anyone that had such a detailed experience that started when they were young and followed them. I mean, she lived in a building with her family, and then from there lived in a trailer with her husband, then moved into her grandfather's house. And I know what you're going to tell me. I can hear you telling me this because I've had paranormal investigators telling me this. It followed her.
Yeah.
Everywhere she moved. And on top of that, there were also some things, and to this day, I try and ask her because I'm still in contact with her, being that the book is pretty recent.
Mm-hmm.
I try and ask her, what do you think was writing in the back of the car? And, it's just, as the book says, it's undefinable, whatever it is. But something, it was her fiance at the time.
Mm-hmm.
They were driving towards her parents' house. They had moved out of the building, which was in the center of town. This is a very small town. Mm-hmm. She was engaged, and they were looking at a trailer home. The parents were now retired, and they were living in a house that was past a forest, a wooded area. Mm-hmm. So in order to get to the house, they had to go down this road, this, of course, lonely road, mm-hmm. that had farms on the right and on the left. And eventually it went into the wooded areas and then to the house. It really wasn't very far from the town. But for some reason, they had just left the bar. They were visiting with friends and having a few drinks. It was after work and it was getting on in the evening, and they were supposed to go to her parents. I think it was for a late dinner. So they got into the car and they're driving down the road. And as soon as they left the town limits and the houses became scarce, they entered the wooded area. And they felt something distinctly leap into the back of the car. It was holding on to the trunk. And she could hear the scratching. And her fiancé at the time looked at the rear view, and you could just see his face. And she tried to turn. He says, "No, don't look." Don't look. Do you have your seatbelt on? She says, yes. What is that? And you could hear the motor revving, fighting to gain ground so that they could keep moving. What is it? She said, what is it?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, don't look, don't look. Is your door locked? He had reached over her to make sure the door was locked. He wanted her to roll up the window. This was like a late spring night, so it was getting warm. So she rolled up the window and she was getting really terrified. And he was just holding on. So finally, they decided they were going to go back to the bar to see if they could shake it off. They went back to the bar, and as soon as they re-entered the town limits, they felt the weight come off of the car.
Wow.
But just like the movies, they go in, he's trying to tell his friends all about it. He won't tell her what he had seen because he didn't want to scare her. And you know, when people don't tell you what they've seen, it makes it worse in your head because now you're thinking about what it could be, and what it could be even worse than what it might have been.
Mm-hmm.
One of the friends offers to go back with them. He said, do you want me to ride along, you know, just to make sure you have an additional person in there for protection in the back seat? Fiance refuses, says, no, we're going to go ahead. I'm sure whatever it is gone.
Mm-hmm.
They get back in the car. He's driving. And guess what happens?
Wow.
It comes back into the car. Now it's like on the roof. And it's that way until they get to the parents' house.
That is spooky.
That is one of those things that, you know, I don't know what to call it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you would call that a ghost. Like, to me, it sounds more like there was some kind of cryptid, perhaps.
Yeah. Yes.
That was writing on them. But these things keep happening to her. It's like just one village of strangeness, one thing after another.
Sometimes a person can be haunted. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I was just thinking about my car and the automatic door locks.
Oh.
So if something like that gets onto my car, and let's say even a UFO stops there because you know how they drain the batteries, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd be dead. Or they'd have to, they would take me because my doors would automatically unlock the minute the power's off.
What do you think? Do you know anyone who's been abducted or feels like they've been?
I don't. Well, I do from doing interviews here on the show, but I really don't. I think I might have been many years ago,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't been regressed yet.
Oh, that should be interesting.
Yeah, I did a thing with a friend of mine in the car where we lost at least an hour to an hour and a half time. Ended up in a totally different city.
Oh, you're kidding.
Mm-mm. Can't explain it.
That's like one of those missing 411 situations.
Yeah. Yep. It was weird.
Did you ever figure out, did anyone ever like examine you to see if there were any marks on you?
No,
or
I didn't think about it. It was just too weird. And I don't know why we didn't do anything, but I didn't really believe real heavy back then. So I just went with it. It was just weird. And the weird thing about it was, as we're driving, it looked like we had gone through like a time warp.
Oh.
Because everything on the freeway looked like it had when I was a little kid.
It took you back.
It took me back. It was really weird. And all the houses disappeared because there were a lot of businesses alongside of the road, you know, small, you know, like Walmarts and all this other stuff. They were gone.
Yeah.
It was all like farmland. It was weird. Like we went through a portal or something on the freeway.
You know, there's something called lucid dreaming, and then there's something called missing time.
Mm-hmm.
And my co-author was telling me, you know, the book is about him as well. So it weaves his story and then weaves the lifetime abductee story along with it.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were sitting down, and this started way back in probably the beginning of November before Thanksgiving, when we started talking about, putting this all together.
Mm-hmm.
And he opened with, I have a lot of lucid dreams. And I'm really not that familiar with what a lucid dream is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not an expert on dreaming or anything like that, but he was saying that there were times where he would just sit in his chair, and this is like when things were still warm before winter.
Right.
And he would start thinking about things. And eventually it would end up being one of those meditations. And he would lose track of time without meaning to lose track of time. And some of them, it would continue into the evening when he was sleeping.
Wow.
And the position of the furniture would change. His bed was kind of like in a certain way compared to where the entrance to the bedroom is. And suddenly things were reversed. And he would find himself feeling that there were two entities in the room on either side of the bed.
Fascinating.
And he said it was so clear as day that they were, in this case, they were American Indian.
Wow.
And they were trying to communicate to him. One of the dreams got so vivid that when he got up in the morning, he actually took the covers off his legs, because in the dream, he was walking into the tree line in the back of his property.
Mm-hmm.
And he walked right through the forest, and in the middle was a clearing. And there was a man standing there right next to this object that was glimmering. And the guy said, without moving his lips, said to Tom in his head, "We need to borrow your energy." And he said, "How do you do that?" And he said, "Come with me." And this object looked like it was so small, he wondered how he was going to fit in it. So the guy escorts him into what looks like an opening. And next thing you know, he's in this huge cavernous room that was seemingly impossible based on what it looked like from the outside. And there was a guy lying on some kind of platform.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like the entity that was standing in front of him. And he said that he needed healing, and Tom was going to provide that.
Interesting. Wow.
What do you think of that?
That is something. I've never heard anything. I mean, I know about lucid dreaming, but I never heard anything like that. That's incredible. It's like he went back in time.
Yeah, it was so weird because he came out of there, he started walking, and he noted, I mean, he was wearing his pajamas, he was bare feet, and he could feel the air, he could feel the leaves crunching underfoot as he was walking back. So the next morning he woke up, he was like, I must have been out there. So of course he opens up the covers to take a look at his feet to see if they were dirty.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually he started, because it kept happening, Shar. And he started asking his wife, when I'm asleep, do I go anywhere?
Mm-hmm. Wow. But does she sleep through it, or does she just see him do this, or
Well, she has a habit. It's funny because they kind of have opposite schedules. She has a habit of staying up and reading at night. So she actually sits by the edge of the bed on a chair with a lamp and the window right behind her. So all this time, she could have been a witness to what was happening with him. But
Mm-hmm.
she swears that he's always there. And she said, well, some nights I do, go to sleep earlier, relatively.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't know, but you've always been here. Physically, his body has always been there.
Right. Right.
But then, they talk about screen memories.
Right. But there's mediums and psychics out there that can travel out of body like that. Because I know a couple on my team where they can have these experiences and not realize they're having these experiences, and then they'll just leave their body and go to wherever, and then they come back. I know
Yeah.
in a case I did, a friend of mine's daughter came and visited me in a dream, but she
Oh
didn't
my
know she'd
gosh.
done it. She didn't know she'd done it.
Did you see her?
Yeah, we actually had a conversation in the dream. And then I told my friend, and my friend goes, "Really?" Because my friend is psychic. And I said,
Mm.
"Well, your daughter came to me," and she goes, "Did really?" Because she had no idea that she had abilities at all, and the girl never knew either. But the girl didn't remember the dream where I did. But the thing that tipped it off for me was it had to be like probably her first or second time doing it, because I don't know if you've been around people that are psychic like that.
Mm-hmm.
If they exert themselves like that and they're not used to doing it, they're exhausted the next day, just exhausted.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
know I asked her, yeah, and I asked her, and I said, "Has your daughter been sleeping all day?" And she goes, "Yeah, why?" And I said, "Because she came to me in a dream." So that was the first time she'd ever traveled out of body.
My gosh.
But people do that. So that makes a lot of sense to me, to have him do that in his dream, or what he thinks is a dream, a lucid dream, to go, yeah. And
Yeah. Yeah.
they probably live on land. Of course, that was Native American at one time. And, the Native Americans are still there. And, they were doing stuff on the land. And so he got to see it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
It's very interesting how it became interactive,
Yes.
because what started with him was, it was actually a Facebook group
Mm-hmm.
that was meditating as a group of people
Mm-hmm.
in order to bring about a sighting. And I've never heard of anything like that until Tom told me about it. He said it's actually a forum on Facebook where they come together and they meditate on a particular night to try to get a sighting.
Sure.
Sighting is in aliens, as in a UFO in the sky.
To open themselves up, yeah.
To open themselves up. As soon as he tuned into that and he became interested, I think that's when things started to really change for him.
Yep.
It was almost like he was inviting them in.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually he started interacting. They started interacting with him.
I'm always telling people that we're all born psychic. The difference is that with some people, as they grow older, because they get busy with life and doing their thing in life, that they suppress it. And all it takes is a trigger, like him getting involved with that group, to open himself up without realizing it.
Yeah.
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 So
and then suddenly you can't stop it, because now they're connected.
They're wide open. The door's open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's, what happened to the woman too.
I'm sure. Because psychics like to be around other psychics.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody you're going to meet, once you open up like that and you start seeing things or whatever, everybody you meet is going to be a psychic. Because I don't know, it's just like the energy draw together.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
everything you've told me is right in line with what I've learned over the years.
there's something interesting, a book I read a while back, and I'm trying to grapple right now with the title of it, but it involves the concept that we're all in a field, and whatever signals and vibrations we send, we reach out to those that are in the same area of the field. And we automatically connect with them without even, making an effort. They just
Right.
kind of appear into our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you and I started talking, and this is probably now a couple of years
Yeah.
since I've guested on your show,
Yeah.
I've met so many people who are sensitive, who are psychic. It's just amazing to me how things tend to accelerate.
Yes.
And when I started talking about, just the benevolent beings, the things that would protect you from these types of negative entities,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly I had more access to the protection
Mm-hmm.
without really actively asking for it. It
Yep.
was as if it was just the vibration that I was sending out. And I'm trying to remember the book. I mean, it was a great book, Andrew Wilcox, just to drop a name, book that I read way back. He really believed that, we're all in a field, and then whatever pebble you throw in the water ripples, and you end up reaching the right type of people that end up becoming a network for you.
That makes perfect sense. Absolutely perfect sense. Yep.
Do you agree with that?
I agree with that 100%. I mean, I can tell you that my abilities, I had them as a kid. In fact, I do this thing on TikTok. Well, you see it every once in a while where I'll tell what happened when I was a kid. But
Mm-hmm.
when I got involved with the first paranormal group, and there were 3 or 4 psychics there, all of a sudden everything exploded. To the point I'd be driving home in my car after meetings and flashlights were turning on and off by themselves in my car. And then I was attracting more psychics. I'd go to the store and somebody would go, "I need to talk to you. I'm a psychic and I see stuff around you."
Yep.
So I mean, you do pull that in, and I agree with that. It's like they used to talk about people with animal magnetism. Remember? Yeah. See, I mean, that's what I think it's like. And then you got this magnetism thing going on with your abilities, and they're just naturally drawn to you. Your energy, your
Yeah.
aura's out there. I used to go to the cemetery, and people would tell me my aura was such that I would have a conga line of people of ghosts behind me
Oh,
because they
jeez.
like my energy. I was like Carol Ann. Poltergeists, they were all there, right? And so yeah, so I'd make a joke out of it and go 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and let's walk this way. But I mean, I agree with him 100% because I think that's what it is. You draw birds of a feather, like they say, birds of a feather, right? You just draw people with similar energies to you.
Yeah. It's
And
pretty neat because
yeah,
you don't even have to travel in order to make it happen. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It's an interesting field to study, that's for sure. If they ever figure it out, and no, for reals, as they say, it's going to be interesting to see what comes out. Because it's an exact science, so everybody's got theories and guessing. But yeah, that's really a good theory. That's
Yeah.
an excellent theory.
I always wondered what brings about these types of visitations.
Mm-hmm.
And this book that's coming out made me think. And that was the first thing when we were talking and I was interviewing these two people.
Mm-hmm.
My co-author said to me, initially it started with just writing his memoir. And then he said, well, you really need to contact this lady. She has quite a story to tell. But the other piece of this is that it's time for her to reveal what's been happening to her for an entire, this woman is now in her early 70s. And it didn't even take much of an effort. I mean, the woman reached out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing I knew, I had shared my phone number and we were talking. I didn't know it was her initially.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started divulging who it was. So the next time I talked to her, I understand you've had some interesting experience. And then it just went from there.
Sure.
And what's remarkable about it is that there's always some kind of a catalyst that brings it about. It's like, you've heard the term, let sleeping dogs lie.
Right.
And I believe that when there's something tragic that happens and something violent that happens,
Mm-hmm.
places become haunted
Sure.
because of the ghosts that are stranded trying to figure out what happened to them. This is
Absolutely.
one of those where, her father unwittingly brought home an object,
Oh
going
boy.
back to haunted objects.
Oh boy. Yep, that'll do
And
it.
yeah,
Yep.
and this one, Charlotte, was pretty potent. The object was what they call a Luger. It was a gun that was used by Germans.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So I won't go on from there, but
Right.
to me, that I personally put together the fact that, okay, was there anything happening before that?
Right.
And it seemed like that kind of led to a quickening as
Mm-hmm.
soon as that was introduced into the house.
You are an excellent paranormal investigator. You know that?
Me?
Yeah. Because
How?
when we go in to talk to people, I have a 100-question questionnaire. Okay.
Okay.
When we go
Okay.
in to talk to people, that's one of the questions we ask. Do you have any antiques in the house, and what kind of activity happened before you brought the antiques in?
Wow.
That's one of the standard questions. So you can start putting
Jeez.
the puzzle together. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
because there's always a trigger. Just like with people, and you were with MUFON, just like with people that are contactees. Their psychic abilities again may be hidden, but after they're contactees, a lot of them are working psychics now because they had to communicate mentally with these aliens.
Yeah.
There's always a driving force behind the stuff. Every time. You should be a
It
paranormal
just seems.
investigator.
Oh, thank you. Without meaning to be. Oh, I think it's one of those things where you're like, okay, I have to have a theory here.
Right,
I
right.
have to figure out like why this is happening because even towards the end, I was really, really, very perplexed
Mm-hmm.
about the situation. And there were so many things that were happening ongoing. And then Tom started getting photographs
Mm-hmm.
from the lady. And he just didn't know what to do. She was out of reach. She was isolated from, it was a very conservative community.
Right.
She did not feel comfortable telling anyone what was
Mm-hmm.
happening to her. It wasn't until later when she started telling her kids.
Wow. I can't wait to read that one, I'll tell you. Woo! You know?
This one is actually longer. It's funny because now it's on pre-order. It came out pre-order today. And it's only the Kindle version that you can pre-order. The paperback, you have to wait until the 18th of April. But Amazon, as Amazon does, reduced the font. Thank goodness Kindle, you can expand the font, but they
Yes.
reduced it, the writing, into like 4 or something like that. Something
Who reads
ridiculously
that
small.
ridiculous crap? That's small.
Yeah. So now it's like 210 pages. I said, there's no way. This is probably one of the longest books
Mm-hmm.
I've ever written because it involved 2 different lives, and I'm putting them back and forth, between what was happening to him and then what was happening to her back and forth until
Right.
towards the end when they finally meet.
Wow. Yeah, that's gonna be a good one to read. Have to put that one on our read list.
Oh, thank you.
Love, love, love. We love your books.
That might
We love
take
your
quite a few months though.
books.
Reading every Sunday, that's going to take quite a few months.
Well, that Salem witch trial book, I started that just before Thanksgiving, and then I stopped it to read Christmas stuff, little Christmas
Cool.
horror stories. Then I
Yeah.
started up again, so we started back in January, and we just finished that the weekend before this last weekend. That's how big that one was. So
Wow.
I can do big
Yeah.
books. It's all good,
Cool. Yeah.
That sounds so fascinating. It makes me want to go out and interview the lady, and go talk to her and see what's going on with her. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, wow, that's something. But I could see it, like with that, bringing that gun in the house. I can understand that. I had
Hmm.
Roman antiquities here, and I did it to myself, so I know what it's like. And then all that stuff starts, and sometimes you're just sensitive enough to where, like I said, the house stops being haunted, but you're haunted.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's one of those things where how do you shake it?
Right,
How do you get rid of it when you can't tell anyone? No
right.
one will believe you. It took to the point where she started having physical marks. And
Wow.
that's when, she started really reaching out because she was getting hurt.
Sure. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that is for like I'm not saying it's a demon. I'm not saying that. But
Hmm.
that is, she's alone like that. She's cut off, from being able to talk to people, and that's all that's what they're looking for. That's what the
Yeah.
bad stuff's looking for. It's looking for that isolation factor. That way they can isolate you more, even more so.
Yes. I believe that. I
Yeah.
do. Yeah. It's one of those insidious things where you don't even realize that you're actually being isolated.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
they want you to be in a remote location. They want
Yes.
you to be alienated.
Yep.
And it was happening to her for a long time. She was
Yep.
alienated by her own husband.
Yep.
And anything that was trying to protect her, including her animals, couldn't protect her.
Right. Absolutely. Dang.
Yeah. It's
And now that you've started writing these types of stories, okay,
mhm.
these types of books, they're going to come to you.
Oh, great.
Now that you've started that, because I
Don't
remember
say it.
we got a shaman on our team, and we started doing a couple demonology cases, and for the longest time, that's all we got for
Really?
alleged demon cases. Yeah, for the longest time, it was tiring. Every
Mm.
case.
Oh my gosh.
It's like once you open the door, and everybody knows that you're going to handle that kind of thing. Boom, everybody in the universe, and then it just all floods at you.
Oh my. Well, I always do my prayers of protection.
Me too.
And right before I sit down to write, I always make sure that I have like a circle of light all around me. And it's interesting because you're fighting with dualism, two opposing forces.
Yep.
And it becomes more and more obvious to me that that's what this is about.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's very
I know.
interesting.
I have a cross that I got from my dad's funeral that was supposed to be cut from the rock where Jesus was entombed. That's what the Catholic Church told me. So, I'm going to go with the Catholic Church. So I have that. That's my last resort if I really get into something that's really, really bad. I figure if I whip that out, not much is
Yeah.
going to deal with that. But yeah, I do that too. I have my stuff on the walls, for protection, and I make sure I'm protected before I look at any of this stuff. I brought stuff home with me where I've gotten scratched, even we'll just listen to EVPs.
Yeah, you were saying. I mean, I can't imagine that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's spooky. But I mean, like going back to this woman, I mean, that's like we said, that's what they look for. They want to cut you off from everything because they want to have that control, or whatever it is wants to have that control over you.
One of the things that was very uncanny about the book, um, that was a little unexpected to me.
Hmm.
One of the things that Tom told me was a particular dream he had as he was getting to know her, and he'd known her for several years before he introduced her to me.
Hmm.
She started telling him about these entities that were entering the room. And some of them, I mean, it was very obvious that they were evil.
Hmm.
Some of them looked like they were victims of the war. Small children that looked like they had been burned.
Wow.
And in one particular night, he was very troubled by what he was hearing. He actually had to shut off his cell phone, put it face down, and give himself a break from it. He found himself exhausted and drained. He went to sleep, only to wake up at one point in the night where he distinctly heard the sound of chains being dragged on the floor.
Jeez. Wow.
And something was coming towards him. Whatever it was so terrifying to him. And he could not move. He could not open his eyes to protect himself. He was getting closer and closer.
Wow. Yeah, it ended up drawing into him.
I think he got to the point where he was able to wake up. I'm sorry, was he able to get rid of it? I don't know that he got rid of it. But I think what happened was he knew what it was about, that he was getting too close to the situation.
Yes.
And so he took a break and he started writing a book that he had been meaning to continue. But it's one of those things where it keeps creeping up to him because he was studying abductees. And out of the 50 people that he got from a questionnaire that he sent out, she was one of 5. And her story evolved so much so that it was so different and so intense that he kept in touch with her. But the information she was sharing was just too much to take.
Right.
And that's what's in the book.
So how did you manage to, I mean, if he was having problems with it, how did you manage to deal with it?
You are psychic. Because that leads to the next. So he had told me this, and then that particular night, I actually went to bed a little earlier than usual. And that's probably why we, scheduled the show earlier, because I usually go to bed at 9. So that particular night, I did go to bed at 9. And my husband was downstairs. He's a sports fanatic, so he watches every kind of conceivable sports event and whatever, and he tapes them. So he was downstairs. I was alone on the second floor, and I wake up to the bed shaking. Now, I'm not prone to nightmares. I sleep very well. Once in a while, like if I have like an allergy problem like I do tonight, I might stay up a little longer trying to figure out a way to get rid of it. But for most nights, I sleep like a baby. I'm pretty much, when I dream, they're usually good dreams. Well, this one, the bed was shaking. And I was trying to get out of the bed is the impression I got from myself, because I thought, why is it shaking? And the next thing I knew, I heard what Tom had heard. There were chains being dragged across the floor from the foot of my bed on the other end. And you had to remember that my bedroom is carpeted. Right. There's no way you're going to hear chains on the floor. So it got closer and closer. And, your fear factor kind of gets up there. And you figure, I'm going to end this. And I'm going to reach out. Because I can, and I'm going to turn the light on. So I reached out, turned the light on. Of course, there's nothing there. And I instinctively reached for the Bible, because I do have one on the dresser. I reached for the crucifix. I put the Bible right next to me on the bed, put the crucifix there. I said a prayer. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to shut the light off. So I did probably about 10 minutes later. And the bed was shaking again. I was like, this darn thing is vehement.
Mm-hmm.
So I turned the light on again while I still can. It disappears. I get out of the bed. I figured maybe we are having, I mean, you're in California, right?
Right.
We don't have earthquakes here, but you know what? There's always a first time.
Yeah, you
So I
never
go
know. Right?
downstairs. Yeah. And I said to my husband, I get to the living room, was the house shaking? Was there an earthquake? And he's looking up at me like, you're crazy. He's like, no, nothing's happening here. Not that I could tell. So I go right back upstairs again. This time I say the rosary, shut the light off, leave the Bible at the side of the bed, the rosary right there in plain sight. I turn over and I go to sleep, and it never came back.
Wow. Dang. Whatever that is powerful.
Yeah, I would say it's probably. I talked to a friend who was speaking of psychics.
Mm-hmm.
She's a good friend as well, and her interpretation was that creature probably sent a low-level entity,
Yes.
like a servant, a minion,
Minion.
to kind of deter you from writing it or scare you or, do whatever they like to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, it didn't succeed.
Wow. Yeah, there's low-level demons. I mean, they're so low level that.
Is that your cell phone?
Mine. That's weird.
Did you hear your cell phone?
Yeah, I've heard it a couple of times, so I don't know if it's mine or yours.
No, mine was vibrating because I have it on silent.
I do too.
That's weird.
Okay. It doesn't like us talking about it.
No.
Whatever. I'll just call in my relatives. They'll kick its butt. But that was weird because I heard it earlier. I didn't want to say anything. And I was like, is that me or you?
No, I was thinking maybe you were texting me because you were looking down just when my cell phone was vibrating as well.
Yeah, see? I was trying to figure out where it was coming from.
Yeah.
That's weird. That's weird. Yeah. I'm going to say weird, not creepy, but weird. Yeah. It's the timing,
Mm-hmm. Pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. But you managed to get done writing the book. Did you have any other instances after that?
No, not really. I think, that was like a lesson for me to say,
Right.
okay, you know when to stop. You know how deeply you want to delve into it.
Right.
So if you're thinking that you're over your head, that's a signal that you're over your head.
Right.
Stop. Go to mass. I'm Roman Catholic, so that's my method. I mean, everybody has a different method. But I went into church. I got communion. I knelt in front of the Virgin Mary, and I said, hey, if you want me to stop, I'm very happy to stop. Otherwise, could you be with me while I write this? And I really felt an intensity that was very different when I picked it up and started writing again. Nothing was bothering me. It was very bright in the room. It was just a very light feeling, Char, and I felt very good after I finished it. Mm-hmm. I soldiered through it, and I felt very protected.
How long did it take you to write it?
I started gathering the information from the two people in November, paused a little bit for Christmas break, and then I started writing it the middle of January.
Wow, that was fast. Very fast.
Yeah, I would say probably about an hour, 2 hours every day, depending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you got it written.
Thank you.
The other, issues.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they don't like you getting the information out, boy. They'll try to stop you.
Yeah. Well, they like to scare. That's the tactic I've been seeing.
Yeah.
Is that they'll probably even talk through the person. And I've had one conversation where I thought, is that really her talking, or is there somebody else talking, trying to threaten me? And I thought, it's out there.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they were both very relieved to be able to tell their story.
but that's the other thing too. When they know they have you scared, they're going to come more because they have you weakened.
Yeah.
So you have to stand your ground
Right.
with some of this
Well,
stuff. Yeah. Wow.
we already know them, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
This has been fantastic. It's been over an hour already. You believe that? Every time,
You're
huh?
kidding. I talk too much.
Hour and 10 minutes. Yeah, there we go.
Oh boy.
Every time. But I want to thank you. It's always great to have you on. It's always fun to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity again. It's always fun talking to you and catching up.
Yes.
And, I hope you do enjoy the book while you're reading it and you don't have any more of those knock the bottles off the shelf type of episodes.
Yeah, well, you know what? It goes along with the territory. So you just got set your mind that that's going to happen. But it threw me, because I've read ghost books like all year, the last 3 or 4 years, online like this, and done all this stuff, and then that one did it, so it's kind of cool and kind of scary at the same time.
Cool.
Can you tell everybody what books you've written? Because my computer crashed about 3 minutes before the show started, so I didn't get a chance to get the little printout thing that I always do for you at the end. Can you tell everybody the titles of your books?
Okay, so I have a website that's under my name, Anna Maria Manalo author.com. And in that, there's direct links to Amazon. The first book I wrote is called Portal, A Lifetime of Paranormal Experiences. It's kind of semi-autographical. I'll come out with that now. It also has stories from my days with MUFON, as well as stories from accounts from people all over the world when I was traveling as a photographer. The second one I wrote, you read that, Char. That was The Way Through the Woods. You read that here on your show. That's about a German girl who escapes through the woods and encounters a lot of things that she never thought she would. And that's called The Way Through the Woods. The third one is Haunted Heirlooms. That is close to my heart because I know those people very well. And that's about 4 antique owners, plus my own experience with a haunted chair. And then that takes us to Unholy Structure, which is the one you're currently reading.
Right.
And then in a couple of weeks, we're releasing The Night Visitants. And this time it's with a co-author and it is independently published. I do have a publisher, Beyond the Fray, but this particular one, I have a co-author who self-publishes. So he published it under his rubric, under his own imprint.
Right on. All right. Well, I want to thank you. I'm going to let you go to bed. I know you like to go to bed early.
Thank you.
We'll have to get you back on, which we will eventually, back on again to have another chat. I hope everybody enjoyed this. This is how our chats go. This is why we lose control, like the one we did 3 hours. So we watch that clock. I remember that night, and you went, "What time?" And I went, "Yeah."
Yeah, I remember. Oh,
we've been at this for 3 hours.
Oh my gosh!
Thank you so much. You've been a great friend. You and I hit it off right away with the first interview, and here we are, right?
Yeah.
We're always talking back and forth online, and it's a nice little relationship we have. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all these years.
Thank you so much. And someday I'll meet you in person when I get out there.
Someday, maybe I'll come back there. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Cool. That would be wonderful.
You never know. All right, Anna, go get some sleep. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a good one. Okay. Good night. We find the button. There we go. There you are. Okay. It's always fun to have her on. We have really good conversations, and I always look forward to it. Anyway, tomorrow we're changing gears a little bit. Well, not really. We're going to be talking UFOs tomorrow, but we're going to be talking aliens. We're going to be talking, does the government know about what's going on above us in the skies with the aliens? Did President Dwight D. Eisenhower have an agreement with the aliens? That's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. My guest is Paul Blake Smith. He's written a book on the topic, so he's going to be joining us at 6:30 p.m. Pacific tomorrow to talk about just that. I want to thank you guys for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. We did start out earlier because, like Anna says, she likes to go to bed early. I'm accommodating. I'm good. Sometimes it gets me off an hour earlier tonight. So I want to thank all of you for coming. And again, if a quick reminder, if you're watching from Facebook and you like what you see and heard and you haven't followed me yet, please be sure to follow California Haunts Radio or follow me directly, and you'll get updates to when all these shows are on. We have a page called California Haunts Ghostly Events also, where these are advertised. So if you guys want to join that page, that'd be great too. If you're watching from YouTube and you like what you see and heard tonight, please be sure to subscribe, check out the rest of our videos, and go from there. And I'm also doing YouTube shorts and stuff too for fun. TikTok. If you have a TikTok and you want to check us out over there, be sure to check us out at California Haunts. And we're also on Twitter and Instagram under Ghosty Gal. We have a Patreon page, and I think I have the link down in the bottom, but below Anna's information. And this Patreon page is a thing we're starting up. I do a lot of pre-records with clients that might be over in the UK and different places like that, where I'll meet with them. Like tomorrow, I'm doing a pre-record with a gentleman that lives in Australia, and or I think London. I think it's 8 hours different, so I think he's over in the UK. Anyway, I'll interview him tomorrow at noon, and these things, are stuff that I will post on YouTube as part of the show at a later date. But for my Patreon people, I will post them 1 to 2 weeks in advance of the actual video showing. So that's one of the pluses that I'm offering over on Patreon. Plus these guests, like maybe Anna Maria, Nancy Matz, some of these guests, that you guys want to hear more from. I'm starting to set it up so that we can have one-on-ones with them over on the Patreon as well. And that would be an extra kind of thing. That would be an extra. The reason why the Patreon's there is, you see that ticker running below where I'm asking, for some donations, because we have to support this thing. It's like we're like PBS. We have to keep the things on the air. We got to pay the internet. We have to pay the power. We have to pay everything else to keep this thing on the air. Computer goes down, I have to pay for it. It all comes out of my pocket. So one of the ways that I was hoping to get help with those during the month, which I think might be a lot easier on people, is the Patreon is $5.50 a month, and you get all that extra stuff besides what goes on the show. You get all that extra stuff. Might even do some live ghost hunts over there, But I was, I'm just getting that Patreon started. So just go on over and check it out. In fact, right now I have a video up, the first video for Patreon members only. It is with Paul and Cyan Hamden, and it's about the after effects of their alien abduction. So you should check that out. But in order to check it out, you have to be a Patreon. So just check it out. Head on over there. Links under Anna's bio. Bio. Can't even talk right. But anyway, I want to thank you all for coming tonight. I'm going to take off here, and I think you guys should go enjoy your meal and enjoy the rest of your evening. But I will see you tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, and we will be talking President Dwight D. Eisenhower and his connection with aliens. Have a great night. See ya.